Welcome to a special Monday evening episode of the Unleashing the Future of Work podcast series. And today I am joined by an awesome gentleman, Atin, who is the founder and general partner at 27 Ventures, a global VC fund that invests in EdTech and future of work startups, investing at the earliest stages, pre-seed, seed. Atin looks for outstanding founders who are building huge businesses and are nice people, leaving a positive impact in the world. Most recently, he was a principal at the hardware-focused VC firm Q Venture Partners, where he continued to be involved with an amazing team at QVP in the role of venture partner. Now, today, what I'm going to be actually talking with him about is this value on being a continuous learner in the future of work, and as well as kind of getting a sense of his background and how he got involved in the private equity world and tech in general. So without further ado, let me introduce Atin. What's up, man?
Hey, Tim. Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? I know you're in Hong Kong right now, right?
Yeah, I am. We're still struggling with everything that goes with the virus, but so far so good.
Yeah. Atin, I would love for you to kind of share a little bit about, how did you get to doing what you're doing in the venture capital world and even living in Hong Kong? I think our awesome community would love to hear more about that.
Sure. Happy to share. I mean, it's like how everyone says, it's never a straight path, right?
Yeah.
So I started out actually as a theater person. I wanted to be a theater director or a film director at some point, which is funny when you look back at it. But yeah, no, so I studied finance, wasn't interested in it, moved over to the business side, and then went and did an MBA immediately after my undergrad. Worked for a business newspaper, did not like it. Yeah. It was a great experience, but I just didn't like the corporate world that much. Yeah. So left that, became an entrepreneur. That was also around the same time that I moved to Hong Kong, which was another challenge in itself. Not only am I starting a new company, but I'm also moving to a new city. But it was so much fun. I loved it. Of course, love Hong Kong. I'm still here 6-7 years later. So became an entrepreneur, failed as an entrepreneur. Went back to the corporate world, but this time in an entrepreneurial setting. So I was hired to run a corporate accelerator here in Hong Kong, which was the first corporate accelerator in Hong Kong. It remains the largest to date, actually, even though it's no longer alive. As the accelerator was sort of sunsetting, shutting down, I was hired by a VC firm that's based here in Hong Kong, but investing globally. With venture partners that you just mentioned, focus on hardware. Worked with them for about 2.5 years full time, which was an amazing experience. Invested in hardware. And then late last year, I sort of raised my own fund, which is 27 Ventures, and now I'm investing out of that. And that's my full-time job for now. Wow. So I sort of been an investor for about 5 years or so. And every time someone asks me why I became an investor, my answer is the same. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I realized I'm not a good entrepreneur. So I decided what's the best way I can help other entrepreneurs is by being an investor. Wow. It gives me access to some of the smartest people I know. It gives me the opportunity to work with some of the smartest people I know. And I have an attention disorder. I can't really do the same thing over and over again. So it gives me the variety, So I've invested in 6 different companies. Every day is different. I work with a different company, and I'm speaking to so many different people. That's just what keeps me really happy.
Yeah. Similar to you, I'm incredibly entrepreneurial. And, I would love for you to share a little bit more about, how did you get interested in tech and, investing in hardware and things of that nature?
So, 2 different questions, I'd say 2 different answers. How I got interested in technology, I don't think I can ever pinpoint like a singular moment like that. I think it was, I'm from this generation where we grew up watching television. Yeah. You had all of these shows that were, you had the Jetsons, and then you had all of these shows that were showing what the future would be like. And the idea was, well, how do I get involved with that? So I don't think there was a singular moment, but it was just this gradual evolution to, you have to be doing something in technology. Like, that's what's fun. That's what's new. With respect to investing, I mean, it's like I said, I think it's just more about me wanting to help entrepreneurs as much as I can, and so I decided to start investing. I didn't know if there's a direct answer to your question, but
yeah, it just gradually came because of the nature of the work that you were doing.
Yeah, and it's been amazing. I mean, I enjoy it every single day. But before I became an investor, I thought a lot about what I wanted to be investing in.
Wow.
What kind of companies I wanted to be involved with, and I think this has been true for decades now. But there are two sectors that I've always been interested in. I love hardware because of the physicality of it, the tangible aspect of it, right? So I've always loved hardware products, not just all of your gadgets, but things beyond that too,
like robotics and things of that nature.
Yeah, robotics, and like my father and I, we used to build. We used to have like a woodworking workshop.
Wow.
Between the two of us in our garage back home in India. So I mean, when you had space, Hong Kong, you don't have a garage, but in India, when we did have a garage, we built like a study desk. We built a chest for our cutlery. We built and Almira. We built like lots of things throughout our childhood. Like we used to have a lot of fun, and so that sort of instilled in me this appreciation for something physical. And robotics is sort of an extension of that. So I still love robotics. And then education was always the other thing. And so about 15 years ago, my wife and I, actually my wife founded it. She founded a nonprofit, an educational nonprofit back home in India. And I sort of joined in and became whipped up in the whole education movement. And so I saw the impact that we were having on all of these kids that we were in touch with. And so education stayed with me. So those are always the two aspects that I wanted to be investing in. And so when I got the opportunity with Q Venture Partners, I jumped at it because it was hardware. And we did some really cool space age stuff. Like we invested in viruses that you're using to smell, like build an electric nose. We invested in a company that created a smartwatch that never needs a battery. It uses your body heat to charge itself. We invested in 3D printing robotics. We invested in batteries that were 10 times more powerful than current batteries. So look, we invested in all kinds of really cool stuff. And that was really a lot of fun. So I enjoyed that a lot. And then last year, I sort of, you come to a point where you start thinking, what next? What do you want to invest in for the 10 years, right? Like not just 2-5, which brought me back to education. So I was like, let's do education because there's just so much more you can do with that. So
and let me show love to our amazing Unleashing the Future of Work community. Pranav is saying, this is great, Atin. How did you go about raising your fund? What did the process look like? And what seeds did you have to sow along the way?
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Love that question. It was not easy. I think the simple answer that I give to most entrepreneurs is raising a fund is exactly the same as raising, any fundraising round for a startup. So it's almost the same. You're trying to build a story. You're trying to say, you're trying to tell these people why your story matters and why you matter and why you think you can, do better than the thousands of other funds that are out there. So the process is all the same. For me, I was lucky where I had a couple of people who had basically been telling me for a while saying that, we've got some cash that we want to deploy. And if you're ever doing something, let us know. And so I was just very fortunate that I already had this base of people that trusted me and believed in me and knew me for a long period of time, that they were willing to take that bet on me. But it was not tough for me, but I don't think that's true for most people. I think it is. And to be honest, I'm still fundraising. So
always be fundraising, right?
Always be fundraising. Exactly. So it's the same, like I said, right? I'm always be fundraising. So thankfully, because of, I don't know if thankfully or whatever, but because of this whole thing that's happening with the health scare, we've sort of paused everything, even at my end. But We're always fundraising. Same same as any.
I love the mindset. Pranav says, thank you so much for that response. And similar to you, I'm incredibly passionate about education tech. And I want to kind of dive deep a little bit on your venture firm, 27 Ventures. And what was the thesis behind that inspired you to build your own venture firm? Because I actually discovered you because of your thesis that you shared and open source to the world, which I thought was just incredibly radical. But there were some pieces in there that I would love for you to share.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the original seed of it was something that I mentioned earlier, which is that I really love working with smart entrepreneurs and working at the really early stages. And so that was the thought process that began it all. Listen, how can I do more of that? And the best way to do more of that is to be an investor. And so you be an investor in the really early stages. So that's sort of what set the whole process off. And then initially what I thought of was that the fund would be investing in education. As I dug deep into it, and again, like any other entrepreneur, startup founder, I did months of research and months of preparation before I really jumped into this. So I did a lot of research on the kind of companies that are out there, the kind of exits they're getting, the kind of fundraisings, all of that. And so as I went through that process, I realized that I was excited by education, but I was also excited by what that education leads to and how we actually make productive lives in the future. And so that became, it went from being just education to being education and future of work. So that was sort of the evolution of the thesis. When I started thinking about, so that was on what I wanted to be investing in. Then I started thinking about who I wanted to be investing in. And so then that came up, then the whole process began again. The one I wanted to be investing in really early. So entrepreneurs that were just kicking off. Most of them are first-time entrepreneurs that I'm investing in. They're distributed globally. But for me, it was very important that they were willing to always, well, like we said, always be fundraising, but they were willing to always be learning. Not always fundraising, but always be learning. And continuous learning, I mean, as you sort of titled this call also, has always been, so like, I mean, I've got a Kindle here, I've got a second Kindle here, I've got a iPad here, I've got notes. So I'm always keen to work with people who are in that mindset of let's learn something new today, and every challenge, every opportunity is for me to sort of grow as an individual. And so I said that's the kind of people that I'm looking for. People who are always learning, people who care about the impact that they're having on the world around them. So that was sort of the way that thesis came to be. And honestly, I mean, what you read is probably a thesis that was 3-4 months old. It's even further now, but the basics are there. The fundamentals are still the same. Invest early, invest in smart people, invest in people who care about the impact they have in the world.
I love it. Invest early, invest in smart people, and invest in people that care about the impact that they have on the world. Definitely write that down, Unleashing the Future of Work community. And it's so fascinating too, because, similar to you, I think that, this idea of always being curious, having a learning mindset, that's something that, I witnessed my mom and my dad. They came here to America as immigrants and they had to adapt into a new environment that is America and literally reskill and relearn just to eventually get to a point where, one, they can survive. And this, I think, learning and adaptability in my point of view, they go hand in hand.
True. Yep. And I think that's, I mean, your example is a prime example. It's true of most immigrants and entrepreneurs who are pushed into uncomfortable situations or situations that are new. They just learn to adapt. They learn how to learn new things, and that's what's important going forward, right? I mean, we want a generation, probably not. We don't want it to be a forcing function as it is today, but we want a generation that's willing to unlearn all of the things of the past and learn something new. I mean, so many people are today learning what the future of work will look like. It's no longer about sitting in a cubicle and talking to a person across, this divider.
It's true.
or sitting in a meeting with 15 people around a boardroom where only one person speaking and the other just absorbing information. That's not the future of work. We need to unlearn those habits. It's just not productive. I think the next step, which everyone's discovering now, is us being, on a Zoom platform like this, or on a video platform like this, and having one-on-one conversations where there are other people also interacting, but there is a deeper connection between you and me, rather than if there were 17 people on this call, where basically 16 of them would be on mute and one person would be just spouting everything. We need to change those habits. We need to evolve our way of working, and that's what we're trying to do, right?
That's powerful. I love that. I love that so much. And everyone is like loving all of the content that you're putting out, Atin. Education is the key to building sustainable communities. 100%. We're getting a thank you and a thumbs up from Paige as well as Julian. They are loving, and Barb as well is loving this back-to-back session that I'm having today. Barb is one of our top and most engaged fans. Barb, definitely make sure that you follow Mr. Batra. It's so interesting. We're talking about the future of work and education. I want to have you, Atin, share a little bit about, 2 or 3 trends that you're seeing in the future of workspace right now. You mentioned remote work, but are there some other tools that are just like piquing your interest currently?
Yeah. So 2 streams. Actually, every time I say future of work, first of all, everyone's question is, what is future?
What does that mean? Yeah.
So my answer to that is, future of work is a very wide sector, and everyone has different definitions. What I've done is I've sort of picked some swim lanes within that interest me. And so one of the things that interests me a lot is robotics and automation. So I've got a company that's based in New York that I've invested in. It's called Toggle, Toggle. And what they do is they've built a full stack system for using robotics in construction. Right now, they're basically saying, can we build these columns using just robotics, just robotic arms, no human intervention? Because it makes them much more safer, it makes them much more cheaper, and makes them much more productive in terms of actually getting more columns out in a day than if there was a human crew working on it. And the idea is not to replace humans. The idea is to supplement humans. Make them work in the safer parts of construction, take all of the unsafe parts away from them, and have robots do them, because robots don't get hurt. Let's just be very clear about that. So, so robotics, it is. So robotics and automation is one swim lane for me. The other swim lane that I've sort of picked for myself is recruitment and hiring. I think one of the things most people who are in this position, where they're in the position of hiring, will realize that recruitment is such a difficult piece to accomplish correctly and to accomplish well, because one, it's so difficult to find the best candidates, whether that's due to restrictions of geography, restrictions of your pay scales, restrictions of culture fits, and then it's so difficult to actually find someone who fits in to your company in just the right way, because every company has a different culture. And so what I've been investing in is a bunch of recruitment platforms or hiring platforms or work platforms where they're trying to erase these issues. So one is a company that's based here in Hong Kong. It's called Terminal One. They're actually doing a lot of work across Southeast Asia. But what they're doing is they've built an assessment tool specifically for engineers, so that even before the engineer actually comes to an interview with the company already knows what they're good at. So that assessment, you just take that assessment test, automatically develops a report for you that says, I'm just going to throw things out here, but like a Python, you're a level 2, and on C++, you're like a level 3 or whatever have you, right? And so you go into the interview, the interviewer already knows exactly where you stand from a skills perspective. Then all they have to focus on is actually ensuring that there's a culture fit. Skills aren't a problem anymore, right? And then for the same tool, when you look at it from the candidate's perspective, now that I've applied for this job Even if I get rejected, I get feedback. So the tool now says, listen, I've used the same example, but you were level 2 in Python. The company wanted a level 3. Here are some opportunities for you to upskill yourself. Here's an online course that you can take. And once you've taken that course, come back, give the assessment again, and we will certify that you're now a level 3. So the next time a similar job like that comes on our platform,
wow,
we'll be able to recommend you because we know that you went from a level 2 to level 3. We can certify you're now level 3, and we can recommend you to the company.
Wow, that's intelligent.
I find that tools like that are so useful for future work because they're actually, not only are they evaluating where you are, they're also helping you upskill. And then they're giving you all of these opportunities where they're connecting the jobs to you. So I think for candidates, even for companies, I think that's stuff like that really excites me because I think it's really solving a problem.
Wow. No, that's so powerful. And, Julian mentioned that he loves that point, right? Of not having one person control the room that you mentioned earlier. And, Julian says he would also love to hear your thoughts on how to displace workers such that they retain their job, but the purpose changes versus the opinion, the efficiency can lead to unemployment.
I mean, so this is something that I think about every single day.
Yeah.
I look at the financial markets as an example for this. I don't know how familiar your audience is with financial markets, but there's been in the last couple of years a huge shift towards algorithmic trading.
Yeah.
All of these computer terminals, all of these software programs that are actually doing the trading. But if you look at what they're doing, there is still a huge percentage of trading that is done by active traders, and the algorithms are called passive trading, right? Because all they're doing is on a rules-based process. They're making trading decisions, but they're not always the best decisions in a dynamic market. They're great if the trend line is going up, or down, they're great. But in today's market, as an example, if you look at what's happening today, the volatility is so high that these trading algorithms are just failing completely. And so what I've realized from this example is that machines are great at doing the same thing repeatedly.
Wow.
They're not good at doing at managing just dynamic environments. And you have to admit that real life is dynamic, if nothing else.
Very much so.
I think there will always be, exactly. And so there will always be opportunities for workers to coexist with machines in any field of work going forward. I think what we need to do is just identify how we fit in those workers into something else. Just give me 2 seconds, but I'll give you another example. So Toggle, which is my portfolio company that I just mentioned earlier, that's using robotics to create these, the rebar cages. What they've realized is robots are really good at holding things in place because they're very heavy, but they're also very, very precise.
Yeah.
But they're not good at tying things. So what they've got is, instead of having 6 humans form the cage, they've got 1 human that does only the tying bit because that's what the human is best at and the machine can never do.
Wow.
But the machine does everything else, which is repeatable, that can be done that is so heavy that only a robot can do it. All of that is handled by the robotics. But the thing that only a human can do, which is tying those robotic bars, that still a human is being used for that.
Wow.
I think you just need to figure out what portions of a particular task is repeatable and automate that. But what is not repeatable, there will always be something that is not repeatable.
Wow.
And that will fall to the human.
Wow, I love that. I love that 100%. And it's so funny because, as you were talking about, robots cannot survive in dynamic environments. I think about everything that's going on with autonomous vehicles right now. There's still a far way for us to go with that being, I think, scaled. But the reality is that I don't think autonomous vehicles are going to displace drivers. I think more importantly, we're going to see a world where drivers are supplemented by these types of machines.
Exactly. It's like cruise control on the highways, right? Like, it's great for cruise control on the highways, but can they drive in the city? No.
Yeah.
And maybe they can at some point, right? Let's just be pretty clear. Maybe they can at some point, but that point is about 15 years away. And who knows where the world will be in 15 years? I'm sure that we will find other things for people to do in 15 years. 15 years is a long more time to go.
Yeah. I love that. So,
Sorry, just one last word. I
Yeah.
personally feel like some of the news articles and the press pieces around displacement of humans in the workforce is a little overblown. I'm not saying that it's not happening. I think it is, but I think there are still always opportunities for humans to supplement this work. I think it falls to the companies, which is sort of why I've created my thesis around this. It falls to the companies that are building those technologies to figure out what the humans that they're replacing will do in the future. It's their responsibility.
That's powerful. And I think in a post-COVID-19 world, I think now the onus is truly on corporations, to your point, to start thinking differently about how are you positioning your workers, not to just be like cogs in the machine, but treating them as an asset, like creators.
Yeah.
So Julian, he loves what you've been saying, man. He's like, good point. Maybe drivers can do something else in the car versus just driving it. Love it. So he really agrees with this thought around, machines aren't going to take the roles of robots. Humans. Instead, humans are going to go into a higher level playing field. I love that. And, Atin, last question. And for everyone that's watching right now in the Unleashing the Future of Work community, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments and we'll show you some love. So, what are the 3 values that really motivate you to do this work, man? You're a globe-trotting venture capitalist and you're literally investing in entrepreneurs who are building the future of work as well as education. But what are the values that continue to motivate you to do this work?
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, there's no more globetrotting happening. So
for now.
Honestly, the wife's really happy that I'm not. So that's a good point. When I think about my 3 values, honestly, I think about what some of the stuff that we've already covered, but always be learning. I've always been a curious person, reading books, listening to other people. Talking to other people is also, I feel like, such a huge part of learning from other people. So always be learning has always been like number 1. The second is always think about your impact, the impact that you're having on people around you, the people that you're investing in, the people that you're working with, and how that is changing their lives. So that's always been, again, a huge part of my thought process. And the third, if I had to put a third value on something, is treasure the relationships or the material benefits.
Wow.
Especially for a business like mine, but forget the professional aspects of it. Even from a personal aspect, I think what's happening in the world today really shows the value of having a personal relationship with someone rather than just a business transaction, right? And I think that's what has come to the fore in today's in today's world, where you've got all of these people that are calling people up that they haven't spoken to for 10 years, but they're genuinely no, but that's true. Like, I mean, they're genuinely. I've called up friends that I haven't spoken to for 10 years, or messaged them and said, "Are you okay?" Yeah. Because I know that you're in New York or you're in San Francisco, but are you okay?
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that you're valuing relationships is always going to be an important part of success going forward. So 3 things: always be learning, think about the impact that you're having, and treasure your relationships.
That's powerful. That's powerful. You know what, man? Similar to you, I truly value all 3. Delano is saying, I think the whole experience of driving is still the most important factor in driving a car and engagement with the vehicle. New technology featuring like Tesla's self-driving car is intuitive, but the next generation is going to be the car's ability to monitor the health of the driver and its passengers, and artificial intelligence going to play a huge part there. So he's really excited about that stuff.
Well, I've got 2 investments in that space, but another time, another story.
That's awesome. And for any of you all who are really interested in the work that Atin is doing, please check out his website. Atin, where can the people connect with you as well as follow your work?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest thing to do is to look me up on Twitter. So my handle is Batra Atin, my second name and my first name. So BATRAATIN. That's my handle. Just look me up. Otherwise, the fund's website is 27v.vc, numbers 27v.vc. And there's a contact form there, and you can always reach out.
Sweet. And with that said, Atin, what are some parting words that you have for our Unleashing the Future of Work community?
It feels like I'm a broken record, but
Not at all.
to people who are really interested in the future of work,
Mm,
my one advice would be to learn what's
mm,
happening in the world today, to learn as much as you can from the past,
mm,
um, and to think about and to go deeper. I think most people look at the superficial aspect of what's happening today. Okay, I know what's happening today. I know what the number of coronavirus patients is and which countries are shut down, but that's not as important. That's not what is important. What is really important is what are the second order, third order consequences of this? How
mm.
will this change how we work? How will this change how we study? How will this change how schools and universities operate? Think about those. Think deeper about all of the repercussions that this current situation or any situation will bring to our world around us. And that's what is most important for anybody interested in the future of
I
work.
love it. I love it. And with that said, y'all, thank you for tuning in for another lovely episode of the Unleashing the Future of Work podcast. Please make sure to share this with your lovely network. Mention me and Atin, and also show us some love in our DMs if you need support with anything. And definitely follow him on Twitter. With that said, peace, love, and talk to you soon.
Thank you very much, Damon. Cheers.
Cheers.